Our position is that we don't say that you take any religious viewpoint or philosophical viewpoint as being without challenge. Our position is that the Royal Society motto is nullius in verba. Evolution cannot just reign there as though it's the only position to take. Evolution is a philosophical way of looking at the world. It's essentially a religious viewpoint. Even though many evolutionists would say, I'm not religious, they're just proving the point by saying that, because the very fact that they're saying we are atheists shows that they are taking a religious viewpoint. It's a negative religious viewpoint. They are asserting this is the way that I look at the world. They have a worldview. So no one worldview must dominate in the classroom, right? And that includes the science classroom. So that does mean, to be fair to them, that I cannot say that my Christian position should necessarily be the only way of looking at the evidence. I personally think actually that it works very well, but if I'm going to be fair, if we're going to have a level playing field, it must mean that the atheist must be allowed to talk and say, I don't think this proves anything to do with there being an intelligence behind the world. Okay, that's his position, right? But equally well, I can take the same evidence and assert, no, the evidence fits very well with an intelligent being behind this world. Let me show to you that there is an absurdity in the position which you've just mentioned to me that some of the regulations are moving to. If you assert that no intelligent design is to be taught by law, right, and that it would be against the law to even mention the possibility of intelligent design, you get to a ridiculous position, because if suddenly I find from outer space, or I don't know, supposing I found a bit of an aircraft, right, and I had to then do an awful lot of explanations for saying, well, this had arisen by nature, when clearly I knew full well that that was a bit of an aircraft, then I would be in a position where by law I would be having to use a framework which said this couldn't have arisen by intelligence. This must have arisen by some natural process. I would be forced down a route which was clearly wrong. Now, people might say, well, that's a bad illustration because you're never going to find it. However, let me now turn to things which I find in my own body, right? Where I find lots of evidence of programming. I find lots of evidence of software. I look at the DNA and I find that the DNA actually shows to me that there is a programming element involved. Am I then forced to say that that programming means that there is no programmer? On what scientific basis should I exclude the possibility that actually somebody has programmed these nucleotides to actually make an information system? Is it not unscientific to refuse to accept that there might have been a mind behind it? Richard Levantin, in one of his famous quotes years ago, said this: we are forced by our a priori adherence to material causes to create an apparatus of investigation and a set of concepts that produce material explanations, no matter how counterintuitive, no matter how mystifying to the uninitiated. Moreover, that materialism is an absolute, for we cannot allow a divine foot in the door. Now, that was Richard Levantin, who wrote in the New York Times Review, Billions and Billions of Demons in 1997. That's a well-known quote. And there he ends up saying, we cannot allow a divine foot in the door. Now, in my view, that closes down proper research, because that means that I'm not allowed to look at the possibility of design in clearly something which shows every evidence of engineering exquisite brilliance. So you're actually closing down the engineering mind from looking at that which is in nature. So that makes my scientific blood boil when people assert that you must by law not allow an intelligent design position or a creation position to at least be critically examined. We're not asking that it necessarily be adopted, but we are asking that critical thought be allowed into the scientific laboratory. If we close down critical thinking in our scientific laboratories, we close down science. The media, and in particular the BBC, just does not present today a balanced view of the evidence, which some of which really does show very clearly a creation point of view, and the flood are really the best way to understand the evidence. But if you put that viewpoint over, the BBC just cuts you out and edits away anything that you've said. And the BBC and other media organisations today are just not interested in presenting a balanced point of view. And I'm very much of the view that we need to get back to a much more balanced outlook to this whole matter of historical evidence, both for and against, maybe, creation position. But let's have a proper, honest discussion on these issues.